Hi guys, it took me a while to record this video because I had to get to the end of the Golden Compass all over again. So it's a really plot-driven, plot-dense story, and the climax comes right at the end, where, spoiler alerts, but you probably, if you haven't read it, you won't be able to understand. This takes place in an alternate Earth, and a lot of it's very different from our Earth. There's something called dust, which is, we learn, is leaking in from an opening between universes. Like there's alternate universes and there's these opening and this dust is drifting in. Anyhow, this, I'm not explaining it very well because it's actually quite complicated for a young adult novel. I suppose that's why it helps that it's plot dense, because then it's just this action adventure of this young woman named, or young girl named Lyra. And anyhow, the climax comes at the very end in the last pages when she decides dust isn't so bad. Everybody thinks dust is so bad. It's coming in from this other universe, but why is this a bad thing? So she decides it's not so bad. She sees her parents, who she didn't grow up knowing were her parents, in a very amorous situation, which is a little uncomfortable. And then her father leaves through the opening between worlds to go into this other universe, and she decides to follow him. So there's no falling action after that climax, because that's just it. The book ends with her leaving. Anyhow, throughout the story, though, there's lots of subplots with some resolutions, but not Hollywood happy ending resolutions. Part of the driving force, we learn about this dust mystery right at the very beginning, but then after that, her friend Roger goes missing, as well as some other kids. Like, kids go missing, that's part of this subplot, that kids are going missing. And she goes on an adventure to try and find her friend Roger, and she finds out why the kids are going missing. She finds out her mother, who she didn't know was her mother because she was kind of an orphan that lived at a college, her mother was involved with the kids going missing. She tries to save her friend Roger. She actually, that doesn't go well. He dies. When the Hollywood wanted to do the adaptation, they couldn't have her best friend Roger die, so they changed it. And they changed the order, the sequence of events, so that it would lead up to a totally different climax. So I think this is a really neat book. It's showing that this is the climax as written, that doesn't fit the typical Hollywood shape of story. Because it didn't necessarily have a happy ending with Roger's subplot, but it certainly sends her on an adventure at the very end for her plot. There's also another subplot with ice bears, and that ends well. So she's in charge of the plot. She is instrumental in affecting the action. So it's a very plot-driven story, but it's dense and full of so much. I'm not sure what production places, but they're doing an adaptation again of all three books this time, and I'm wondering if they won't be changing these endings around, like, because they really only did the one because they kind of flipped it up. I mean, it was really well built for world building. Anyhow, not to talk too much about the adaptation, but it does get like messed up in my head a bit, so I had to like reread it carefully to make sure I knew exactly what the story was. I had read it years ago as well. I left the movie theater and somebody said, that's not how the book was, and I ran out and got the book right after that and read it. So that was like 12 years ago. So anyhow, thanks very much.